This is a Sichos from Likutei Chelek Lamed Hey, Parshas Vayigash Sicha Beis, and the topic is that in this week's parsha we learn that Yosef instructed his brothers before they traveled to bring Yaakov down to Mitzrayim. He told them, "Al tirgezu baderech," and so the Sicha will present two ways that these words are explained. What does it mean, Al tirgezu baderech? Then we'll have the explanation of these two opinions and the basis for the argument between them. Then we'll present a third way of how Al Tirgezu Baderech is explained and how it fits into what we said until now. And then finally, we will learn what it is that we can learn from all of this. In this week's parsha, we learn that when Yosef sent the Shvatim to bring Yaakov to Mitzrayim, he told them Al Tirgezu Baderech. And there's two explanations for what this means. The Gemara Masechtas Taina says, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Lehem Yosef Le'echov, Al Tis'asku B'dvar Halacha, Shema Tiragzu Aleichem Aderech. Yosef was telling his brothers that they shouldn't become occupied in a Dvar Halacha because maybe, as Rashi says, they'll get lost on the way. So he was instructing them not to occupy themselves, and not to become preoccupied with learning. However, the Medrash in Bereishis Rabbah says that Yosef was telling them, Al ta'midu atzmechem midivrei Torah. They shouldn't hold themselves back from learning Torah, meaning they should continue to learn Torah while they're traveling. And so this seems, when we look at it on the surface level, like there's a contradiction. The Gemara Masechtas Taina says that it means that he was telling them that they shouldn't occupy themselves with learning, and the Medrash Rabbah says that he was telling them that they shouldn't stop from learning. And Mefarshim write that really there's no argument over here between the Gemara and the Medrash whether a person is obligated to learn Torah. And this is based on the continuation in the Sugya and the Gemara there. The Gemara immediately says, Eini, is this indeed true that a person shouldn't learn on the road? If there are two Talmidei Chachamim that are going on the road, they're traveling, and there's no Torah between them, they deserve to be burned. And the Gemara answers, Lo Kashi, it's not a difficulty. Hola Migros, this teaching of Rabbi Rechia is talking about learning Legirsa, and Hola Yune, and this that Yosef told his brothers is talking about learning Be'iyun. And so it comes out that according to this, the Gemara is saying that Yosef told his brothers not to learn Be'iyun, and the Medrash is saying that Yosef told his brothers that they should learn Legirsa. And we can also actually see it in the wording in the Gemara, that it's talking about learning Be'iyun, because the Gemara says that he told them, Al Tis'asku, don't be Isaac. Isaac reflects a deep level of learning. And he told them, Al Tis'asku B'dvar Halacha, that when learning Halacha, it's necessary for a person to learn much deeper so that he gets to the correct Halacha. Whereas in the Medrash, it says, Al Tamidu Atzmechem Midivrei Torah. All he told them is that they shouldn't hold themselves back from learning Torah. It doesn't reflect a deep level of learning, but rather a basic level. And so it comes out that everyone agrees that while traveling, a person shouldn't learn Be'iyun, but on the other hand, he is chayav to learn Legirsa. And the only difference between the Gemara and the Medrash is, what did Yosef tell his brothers? Did he tell them not to learn Be'iyun? Or did he tell them that they should learn Legirsa? And the question is, what's the reason for their argument between the Gemara and the Medrash about what Yosef warned his brothers? Why do they argue? Why does the Gemara say that the warning was about not learning on a deep level, and the Medrash says the warning was about continuing to learn and making sure to learn Legirsa? What is behind their argument that causes them to argue here about what exactly it is that Yosef told them, if essentially they both agree that a person should learn Legirsa and shouldn't learn deeply while traveling? We're going to start now by putting some information in place, and that's going to lead to our answer. So we can say that the Gemara and the Medrash are arguing about what's the chiyuv to learn Torah while traveling. What is this chiyuv? Because there are two ways of understanding it. One way is it's part of the regular chiyuv to learn Torah in all places and in all situations. And as the Torah clearly says, where it teaches us about learning Torah, it says, and while you're traveling on the road. So this is part of the regular chiyuv of limud Torah. But then there's another way of learning it, that besides the regular chiyuv of learning Torah, when it comes to traveling, there's a special chiyuv. And so this is a special chiyuv on a person while he's traveling. And one way of explaining it is that we can connect it to what's known that kol hadrachim b'cheskas sakana, and also la'amid atzmei b'mokim sakana. And as we find that Torah is megino matzla, so since kol hadrachim b'cheskas sakana, and a person is not allowed to put himself in a place of sakana, and we know that Torah is megino matzla, it protects. So therefore, while traveling, there's a special chiyuv of learning Torah besides the general chiyuv. And the difference between these two explanations, whether it's part of the regular chiyuv of learning Torah, or whether it's something special and unique for this specific thing that the person is doing, that he's traveling, is where a person is traveling and busy with matters of parnasa, where then he is patur from learning Torah mitzad the chiyuv, the regular chiyuv of learning Torah, but mitzad the chiyuv that he has to learn while traveling for the protection that it affords, he'll be obligated to learn. And if we look, we can see that these two ways of explaining it fit into the Magen Avram and into the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. And the Magen Avram, in the halachas of traveling, he teaches this halacha, meaning that he's attaching it and associating it with traveling, that a person should learn while traveling. He says, but not be'iyun. And he continues and says, and if he's in a wagon, it's possible that he may learn be'iyun. But he's teaching this halacha in the halachas of traveling, which indicates that it's a special chiyuv related to traveling. Whereas by the Alter Rebbe brings it also in the halachas of traveling, but when he teaches it, he brings in parentheses the source. He says, where is the source for this? That a person has to, that while he's traveling, a person should learn. He says, from uvelech dechav, which indicates that the Alter Rebbe sees it as part of the regular chiyuv of limud Torah. And now we have the answer. So this is the difference between how the Gemara and the Medrash explain the pasuk. The starting point is to understand that if Yosef is telling his brother something now, it means it's something that's important for now. It's connected to now. Because they're now traveling, he has to tell them something. So according to the Gemara, that Yosef only told his brothers, Al tis'asku b'dvar halacha, that they shouldn't learn in depth. Well, that's because the Gemara holds that the chiyuv to learn Torah on the road is part of the general chiyuv to learn Torah. And so it doesn't make sense that Yosef warned them about something unrelated to traveling. Why is he telling them now to do something that they're always doing? It's not connected to what they're about to do. So that rather, he must have been telling them not to learn in depth while traveling. Because the Gemara holds that the chiyuv to learn while traveling is an ongoing regular chiyuv, part of limud Torah. So if Yosef is giving them an instruction before they start traveling, it must be an instruction related to what they're doing. They're about to travel. What's important to know while a person's traveling that's not there the rest of the time? That a person shouldn't learn in depth. But according to the Medrash, that Yosef told his brothers, Al tamidu atzmechem b'divrei Torah, don't hold yourselves back from learning, meaning learn while you travel. They're always learning. Why does he have to tell it to them now? Well, that's because the Medrash holds that there's a special chiyuv to learn while traveling. So now that they're about to travel, Yosef's giving them this special instruction. You're going to travel. It's important to know something that's related to traveling, and that is, don't stop from learning. Continue to learn Torah. Yes, Lagirsa it means, but make sure to learn because you need that protection. We're going to move on to a whole new part of the Sicha, and that is, up to now we spoke about the Gemara Masechet Tainis and the Medrash Rabbah. We have a different girsa, a different teaching about what Yosef told his brothers in Tosfos in the Gemara there. Tosfos brings down, he says, V'yesh Medrash al tafsikum midvar halacha. There's a Medrash that says that what Yosef instructed his brothers is al tafsikum midvar halacha. Don't stop from learning a dvar halacha. He was telling them that they shouldn't stop, meaning they should be learning a dvar halacha, learning be'iyun. Like Mefarshim explained, that's what this Medrash is saying, that they should learn be'iyun while traveling, which is different than what the Gemara says that they shouldn't. That he was telling them that they shouldn't learn be'iyun, and also different than the Medrash Rabbah that he was telling them that they shouldn't stop from learning, but that was only the Girsa. So it comes out that it's different than both the Gemara and the Medrash. Now, according to what we said earlier, it makes sense that this is part of the general chiyuv to learn Torah. What Yosef is telling his brothers, they shouldn't stop from learning biyun, that while traveling they should learn biyun, is probably as a result of the general chiyuv to learn Torah, because for protection while traveling, it's enough to learn Lagirsa, since there should be no need to learn biyun while traveling. And Yosef was warning them not to stop from learning biyun. And how could that be? We said it's a danger that a person can get lost on the way if he's learning biyun. So the explanation will be because he sent wagons, and probably if he sent the wagons, he sent them with drivers. And so in such a case, like we mentioned earlier in the Magen Avram says it's possible that then you could learn. This would be the source for it, according to this Medrash, that Yosef was telling them to learn biyun what was the heter for that? Weren't we concerned they're going to get lost? The explanation is probably that he sent wagons, and the wagons had drivers. However, it's difficult to say this, that this is part of the general chiyuv to learn Torah. Because if that's the case, then it wasn't a warning of what they should do specifically while traveling. Why is Yosef telling them, don't stop from learning B'iyun? This is nothing. Why is he telling this to them? He's not telling them everything that they need to be doing at all times. It's because it came a time to traveling. There's something special to be told now. So according to the Gemara, he was telling them, be careful. You're usually learning B'iyun. Don't learn B'iyun. According to the Medrash, he's telling them, even though they're always learning, make sure to learn. It has to be especially important now for a different reason, because you need the protection. But according to this Medrash that Taisus brings down, if it's just part of the general chiyuv to learn Be'iyun, then why is Yosef telling this to his brothers now that they're about to travel? This has nothing to do with traveling. This is a general chiyuv. And so it's difficult to say that it's part of the general chiyuv to learn Torah, and it means that they should be learning Be'iyun because there are wagon drivers. Therefore, it seems that the Medrash means that Yosef was warning his brothers to learn Be'iyun. They shouldn't stop from learning Be'iyun because they need to learn Be'iyun to protect themselves while traveling. Because if he's telling them, don't stop from learning Be'iyun now, he's telling it to them now, it means it's relevant now. What would be the relevance? It must be that it affords protection to the person while he's traveling. And the difference between the Bereshis Rabbah and the Medrash in Tosfos, that the Medrash Rabbah says that it's enough for a person to learn Begirsa to get the protection. And the Medrash in Tosfos says that a person has to learn Be'iyun to get the protection, is based on how to understand the protection from learning Torah. There's two ways of understanding it. One is it's a B'derech Zgula. The Rebbe brings a Rambam over here about saying Psukim in parts of Torah and how they have a special power to protect the person. And so it's a Zgula connected to learning Torah because it's such a great mitzvah. That's one way of understanding it. Another way of understanding it is that the learning of Torah affects a change in the person. The Gavra becomes a different person. It's not that there is the person and the Torah has this special power and it's protecting the person as if it's like something that's outside of him with a special power and that he's using it for protection, but rather the Torah affects a change in the person when he becomes one with it. When he becomes one with the Torah, he becomes a different person. And as that different person, he becomes such a person that he's protected from all types of negative things. Like we find that it says that Talmid Chachamim are compared to fire, and the fire of Gehenna cannot rule over them, can't cause them any harm, because the person becomes a different person. So according to the Medrash, that it's a Zgula, so for that, learning Legirsa is enough. As long as a person is learning Torah, like the Rambam says, even Psukim, that would be enough to give that type of protection. But for the second type of protection, that the person gets because he becomes a different person when he learns Torah, for that a person has to learn Be'iyun. It's only when a person learns Be'iyun that he becomes completely immersed and one with the Torah. And the Rebbe continues and explains at length that we can say that it's hinted to in the words Al Tafsiku Midvar Halacha. Usually by Torah we talk about Bittul Torah. It should have said Al Tisbatlu Midvar Halacha. We find it says Mevatlim Tamil Torah Obein L'Shmaya Mikra Megillah. That we see over there that learning on a not as deep of a level is considered Bittul Torah. That's why it says we are mevatel Talmud Torah, and we come to hear the Megillah. The Megillah is also Torah. The reason it's called Bittul Torah is because you're not learning as deeply. So it should have said over here, Al Tizbatlu Midvar Halacha. Don't go to a girsa level of learning and be mevatel Torah. Why does it Al Tafsiku Midvar Halacha? It's hinting over here that the reason you have to be occupied in Dvar Halacha is that there shouldn't be a hefsek. There shouldn't be a separation between you and Torah. If you're not learning the Torah deeply, then you're not one with it. You're separated from it. And so Yosef was instructing his brothers, don't stop from learning Be'iyun so that you're not separated from the Torah. This way you will be united with the Torah, you'll be one with the Torah, there'll be a different person over here, and then you'll have the protection that Torah gives to a person while traveling. Now we'll look at why is it that the Shvatim needed this higher level of protection. Why wasn't the lower level of protection enough? Why does this Medrash say that they needed this higher level of protection, that they became a totally different person? So the reason the Shvatim needed this level of protection was because the road they were traveling at this time was especially dangerous compared to all their previous travels that they had to and from Mitzrayim. Because this journey was connected to bringing Yaakov and his whole family to Mitzrayim. In other words, what does it mean? This journey was the beginning of the Galus, of the Yidden going down into Mitzrayim. And in order to be protected from Golus, we're talking about something so severe and harsh, for that it's necessary to have this higher level of protection. As it says, the opposite of Golus is Ben Chayrin. So, Ein Ben Chayrin, Elamisha Isaac B'Talmud Torah. There has to be in this Askus in Talmud Torah. And so that's why, for this journey, they needed this special instruction. It could be in other journeys, they didn't have to learn Biyun, even according to this Medrash. It would be enough to have the Segula part of Torah to protect them. But for this journey that they're going into Golus, in order not to be in Golus, in order to be a Ben Chayrin, there has to be an Isaac B'Talmud Torah. The person has to become a different person in order to rise above the Golus. And that's why we also find that Yaakov arranged a base Talmud where they would be, like it says, Hoigim, which means to learn deeply. They should learn Be'iyun in learning Torah. Because Yaakov knew in order to transcend the Golus, it's necessary for a person to become one with Torah. And this also explains why, when we look at the conditions that the Rambam writes about Mashiach, who's a melech, one of them is that he has to be hoige b'Torah. Why does he have to be hoige b'Torah if he's a melech? Because if Mashiach is supposed to take us out of Golus, Mashiach has to be above the Golus. And in order to be above the Golus, it's necessary for a person to be totally one with Torah, which that comes from Iyun Torah. And so this is the anecdote to the Golus, the anecdote for a Golus, that a person should rise above the Golus and not be held down in the Golus, and a person should be a Ben Chayrin, and not in the Golus. For that, it has to be Isaac B'Talmud Torah. A person has to learn Torah, specifically Be'iyun. So to summarize, we have over here the Gemara Masechtas Tainis, we have the Bereshis Rabbah, and the Medrash and Tosfos. The Gemara Masechtas Tainis says Yosef instructed his brothers that they shouldn't occupy themselves in learning Torah Be'iyun. The Medrash Rabbah says that Yosef instructed his brothers not to stop from learning Torah L'Girsa. And the Medrash and Tosfos says that Yosef instructed his brothers that they should learn Torah Be'iyun. And the explanation for the differences in these Midrashim is starting off with understanding that Yosef was certainly giving them an instruction that was relevant to them at that time. So according to the Gemara Masechtas Tainis, that holds that learning Torah while traveling is part of the regular chiyuv of learning Torah. There's nothing special. There's no special reason to learn Torah now. It must be that if Yosef is giving them an instruction now that's related to traveling, it has to be that he was telling them, don't learn deeply, because that's the only thing that's important to know while they're traveling related to learning Torah. Don't learn deeply so you don't get lost. However, according to the Medrash Rabbah, the Medrash and Tosfos, that Yosef was telling his brothers to do something, that they should learn Torah, L'Girso, or they should learn Torah, L'Iyun. It must be that they hold that learning Torah is connected to traveling. And so the explanation is that they both say that learning Torah while traveling provides a person with safety and security. And the difference between them is that the Medrash Rabbah says that the security that it affords a person is in a derech hasgula, and for that learning L'Girsa is enough. Whereas the Medrash and Tosfos says that the protection that it affords a person is because it changes the person. And for that protection, it's necessary for a person to learn Be'iyun. And technically, the way it doesn't contradict the Gemara is because we're going to say that there were wagons with drivers, and so they were allowed to learn even Be'iyun. And the explanation for this Medrash choosing to say that they needed this deep level of protection is because here they were going down into Golus. And in order for a person to rise above the Golus and not to be held down in the Golus, for that a person has to be Isaac B'Talmud Torah. It has to be a complete change and transformation. The person has to become a different person. And that's why we find that in order for Mashiach to take us out of Golus, Mashiach has to be Hoige B'Torah. He also has to be above the Golus. And the way he's above the Golus is through this, that he's Hoige B'Torah. He's learning Torah Be'iyun in a way that he becomes completely one with the Torah.